Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are working on a 2015 Subaru Forester. Has an airbag light on. King Bolen sent me this scan tool. We're going to try it. It works with your cell phone. I normally hook it up to my own Toyotas, but since I have a Subaru in the bay, we'll see if it works with Subaru. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in under the dash. We'll see what fault codes we have for the airbag. The customer said sometimes the horn doesn't work as well. So I'm expecting to see something with our clock spring, but we will find out here shortly. So for this, I'm going to use my iPad. I just like a bigger screen. It works on the bigger screen. I did test this out and I had a couple of issues since the last update from Apple. We'll see if it works with us, works for us today. So I opened up the Ediag software. We are going to go to All System Diagnostics. It will have to connect to that via Bluetooth. I already have that set up, but let's do a VIN scan. It should automatically identify the vehicle if it's new enough. Some of the older vehicles don't have a VIN number stored, so it will have to, you have to manually enter that. I think we can turn off that sound in settings or possibly turn down our volume here. So there's a newer version of the software. It's automatically installing it. I am connected to our Wi-Fi here in the shop. So this is a North American vehicle. We have our VIN number, which is a 2015 Forester, and that matches my service information here. So we're going to do a system health report. System scan is just going to check to see what modules are on the vehicle, but it won't give you the fault code. So there's no point in actually doing that. Health report is going to scan for codes in every single module, but actually we are just focused on the airbag right now. Let's just go there. Otherwise we may be waiting a couple of minutes. So let's go to airbag. It's going to establish communication with the airbag module first, and then we'll pull some codes out of it. Read fault codes. So we have two codes. One is an open in the driver airbag, dual stage, so the second stage of the inflator. And the other code is open in driver airbag. So both codes are related to the driver side airbag. So I am highly suspecting a bad clock spring. I don't think that we're going to have a bad airbag module. There was recalls for most of these airbags, but it wasn't for the circuit of the inflator. It was for, you know, debris in the airbag itself causing injury when they go off. So let's go into data. Some vehicles will give you resistance values. I don't think Subaru does, at least not in something this old. No, our data is kind of limited. I know Fords do. It's kind of nice because you can just look at the resistance and you can, you know, turn the steering wheel back and forth. And if that resistance changes, then the clock spring is definitely bad. But this one, we're going to have to do a couple of things to test this out. We'll have to pull the airbag, the inflator out. There's some safety precautions with that. Always reference the service manual. And then we'll pull the column covers. Sometimes we can substitute a known good resistance value for testing only, and that will tell us if our clock spring is bad. We cannot check the resistance of the airbag itself. That is not a good thing to try. It takes a special meter or special hardware built into the airbag module to test that, because the electricity from our meter, it sends a little bit of voltage out to measure that resistance, might be enough to actually activate that airbag. And you do not want one of these airbags going off, sitting on the bench while your hands are above it, checking it with a meter. You'll definitely do serious harm to yourself. Just to make sure that we're not, you know, fighting something that's an old code, I'm going to turn the engine off, turn the key back on. And what I want to do is just clear the codes and make sure that those codes aren't just history codes. This did come from a body shop. They said no airbags were deployed. So I want to make sure that, you know, they didn't have something apart, have the steering wheel off for some reason. So read fault codes, and actually both codes came right back. So this is a current problem. It's not a history fault. These are current codes. So our next step is to get the airbag out or the inflator out, and we could put a known good resistance value on the terminals and see if our code goes away. If we want to test the next step, we have to go down into the column and connect our known good resistance value down there and see if those codes go away. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the key off. Now, service manual is going to tell you to disconnect the battery. wait 5 minutes before messing with the airbag system. You should always follow the service manual. These airbags, to get these out, there's 3 latches, I think, on this one. I feel 3 holes in the back of the column cover. So there's going to be a tab, at the bottom and 2 on the side. We're going to have to release those tabs, get this airbag inflator out of the way. So on the side of the steering wheel, we have a hole here on each side, and then there's another one down here. The one down here is actually the easiest one to release. It's a straight shot with a screwdriver to push on the spring tab. But let me see if I can get an image in there. It's kind of hard to see, but there's just a little tail of a spring, and I have to push on that with my screwdriver. You can see some scratches where someone's been in there before, and that may have been for the recall. But I need to push on that spring to release this side of the airbag. So with those 3 tabs released, we can pull the airbag back. Now, it's still attached with wires here. There's a single wire. Let me reposition you a little bit. So we have a single wire down here, that is for the horn. And we're going to have 2 inflator wires here and here. Now, to release these inflators, someone has been in here before, which makes me nervous. We're just going to lift up like that. That will release this clip from the airbag itself. And then we can pull out on it. Like that. And we can pull out on it. After seeing the damage to these clips, this clock spring needs to be replaced no matter what. With those out of the way, there's just a single retainer here on this spade connector. And this is for our horn. If we ground it here, actually I can't because my clock spring's bad. The horn works in certain positions, but if this wire were to ground against the steering wheel, then our horn would go off. Now, looking in here on this airbag, you don't want to try to check the resistance of this. If you did, it would probably show 0 ohms. It would show shorted. And that's because they have a little metal tab right here that shorts the terminals to help prevent any arcing across there. I don't see any damage to those terminals. So I think, whoever was working on this, I think they pried these clips off without releasing them first. But both of them have damage to the retainers. So I don't think we need to go further. Normally you could put whatever the resistance value of that airbag is supposed to be. This is probably a 2 or 3 ohm airbag. You put that resistor in there and then see if the airbag fault codes would clear. It is a seriously dangerous situation if you leave that resistor in there because the airbag inflator will not work and you're risking yourself, your loved ones, or whoever's vehicle you're working on if you were to leave those in place. I also see some kind of janky tape going on here. So this is a not okay repair that somebody has been in here messing with. So what we're going to do is we're just going to recommend a clock spring, replace this clock spring, and then see if our code's clear. But if this was a vehicle that I was questioning if the clock spring was good or bad, or if it was my inflator that was bad, then I would put a substitute resistor in here, clear the codes, and see if the codes come back. If I put a resistor in just one side, and I only get one code that returns, for primary or secondary, okay, move that resistor over here and then see if the other code comes back. With the damage, we're just going to do it. So we got approval from the body shop to replace this clock spring. They just did a minor fender touch-up, but this vehicle has been in a hard collision in the past that was repaired somewhere else. So we're going to unplug this. This is the connector for all of our steering wheel controls, and our horn wire goes into the clock spring back here. This yellow wire is going to stay with the clock spring. It does not unplug. It looks like it kind of does, but our new clock spring will come with that wire. We have this nut on the steering wheel. We're going to loosen that nut. We are going to see if we can get the steering wheel to pop loose without using a puller, because not everyone has a puller available. So we'll just loosen that nut a few turns and we'll give this steering wheel a yank. I don't know if this steering column and steering wheel uses a master spline, so I'm making sure that my steering wheel is straight up and down. I'm just going to loosen the nut. Do not take it all the way off. Just loosen it a little bit. If you take it all the way off, you knock your teeth out. But if we leave it on there, the steering wheel is going to be retained by that nut. I'm going to put my knees underneath the steering wheel. I just lowered the column down a little bit. Ooh, it's a telescoping wheel, so this may not work. Just popped it off like that. So I just put some pressure, wiggled it a little bit until it popped off. I do not see a master spline, so if you need to mark it, mark it. Now that the steering wheel is off, we have a screw on each side of the steering column cover here. We can take those screws out. There may be a screw underneath, but normally not on these newer ones. So we'll pop those off. We can get the upper cover off. We can unclip the lower, get it out of the way, and then we can unclip our clock spring from behind. Now we can see there's a little window here. We see that orange indicator. That means that I am at the proper alignment here. My wheels are straight forward. If for some reason we just lined our steering wheel straight up and down and we got this apart and we could not see that orange disc in there, then we know that there's an alignment problem. We need to check to make sure that our wheels are pointed straight forward before installing the new one. So you can see that orange disc is visible. If you don't, what happens is when you turn one direction, it overextends the spiral cable in here and it'll break it. So with the column covers lifted up out of the way, we have a connector here on the bottom. This is going to be for our radio controls. So it does not have like a safety lock or anything on it. It's just a regular push button and release. This yellow connector is for our airbag, and it's a little more complicated to release. Let me change our camera angle here so you guys can see how I release this. So on this airbag connector, there is a spring-loaded tab right here. We're going to push this spring-loaded tab back. It will release the whole thing. You can push it off. And I think maybe this white connector may have to come off. I think when we pull the clock spring, the steering angle sensor is going to come with it, and we'll have to transfer it over to the other module. But that can probably be unplugged once we get the clock spring loose. The clock spring has just some, spring-loaded latches right there. Should be one up on the top. And one more here. Unplug the steering angle sensor on that other wire. Steering angle sensor needs to be transferred over to our new unit. So we have a new clock spring. It still has the safety tab in place there. Now this one doesn't have the orange disc, but we can see a loop of wire in that position, letting us know that it is centered. We need to transfer the steering angle sensor from one to the other. Just like pulling this off the column, there's just a series of clips that hold this in place. So we just have to release these clips. Now there's five or six clips here. Steering angle sensor will lift off the back. Make sure my new unit is in the same orientation here. And this is going to go on here just like so. But what I notice is, this old unit has some grease around here. The new unit came with a little tube of grease. So just to make sure that everything is greased as it should be, they probably want these the points where the plastic rub here and here, and maybe a little bit will smear around the outside. They give you way more grease than you need. I use this grease for door lock cylinders and some other stuff as well. when I get extras. They're probably just trying to prevent plastic from squeaking on plastic. So we have 2 tabs that we need to line up into our clock spring here. Latch that down into place, and now we can reinstall our new clock spring back onto the vehicle. We'll make sure to plug in our steering angle sensor, 2 connectors on the clock spring. So clock spring is snapped in place. Let's plug in steering angle sensor, the connector for our airbag, latched into place, connector for our radio controls, horn, and cruise control. We can put our column covers back on. Okay, column covers are snapped together. We'll reinstall those 2 screws. Now we can reinstall our steering wheel. Now some vehicles will allow you to reinstall the steering wheel with this retainer in place. This keeps the clock spring from rotating during shipping. Some vehicles you can install the steering wheel, pull that out later. Other ones you have to pull that out before installing the steering wheel. We'll give it a shot, see if the steering wheel will fit. I don't think it will. It will not, so we can go ahead and break that tab off. Steering wheel is installed in a vertical position. We have our center nut here. Always torque this to spec. Plug in our steering wheel controls. We have these connectors we still need to install into our airbag unit. I want to make sure that these lock tabs are, not depressed. A little bit different design than the one we took out. These lock tabs are slightly different, but everything should work perfect. At least these ones have the right color combination. I think our other one was green and black, or green and yellow, black and yellow. This has an orange and black, which matches our clock spring. So who knows what someone had done previously. I had to lift up on that lock tab just slightly. Now that those are both clipped into the right colors, we'll push down on that lock tab. When we push down on that, it lifts those 2 little shorting bars away from the terminals and allows this to be connected to the airbag control module. We need to hook up our horn wire. And we are just going to push down on this and make sure that it snaps in all 3 corners. And we should be good to go. Now we can push our steering wheel back in there. And then I'll hook the scan tool back up. We'll clear the codes. We'll shut the key off. We'll cycle the key again, make sure the codes don't reset. I can already hear my horn is working. Now the cruise control and radio functions, they were still working with the old one, so we'll double check that, make sure they're working with the new one. So I've got the Ediag software pulled back up. I already noticed my airbag light went out, but let's read our fault codes. So we still have those codes in there. Let's go back, let's clear our fault memory. Ignition on, engine off, confirm, confirm. So it says we cleared our codes. I'm going to turn the key off now. Just give it a couple seconds. Now, some operations on Subarus, you actually have to turn the key off at 30 seconds. But this, I'm just going to start it up. Read our fault memory, and we have no codes. So pretty simple. We were able to read codes with the Ediag software using my iPad, just the dongle plugged in. This vehicle didn't offer a lot of diagnostic data for the airbag system through the scan tool, but the factory scan tool is the same way. Our airbag light is no longer illuminated. It was lit up right there. Let's go ahead and hit the cruise control button. So that is activating on and off. Try not to get a copyright strike, but our volume is working here. We can change radio stations. So that is working. So I think that was a pretty good test for the Ediag Elite. Hooked up to this Subaru, we were able to read codes. This car doesn't support a lot of data PIDs. It's not this tool's fault. It's the factory scan tool is the same way, so it doesn't really matter. Going in there, we saw the damage on the clock spring. Clock spring needed to be replaced. Once we replaced that clock spring, we were able to clear the codes, verify they didn't come back. All of our other functions are working properly. This tool is less than 150 bucks. Sometimes there's a coupon on Amazon. I'll put a link down below if you're interested. It's supposed to work on all makes and models. This is the first vehicle I've tested it on, but looking through their list of stuff when I installed the software, it looks like it has all makes and models. It does more than just powertrain. It does body, chassis, and powertrain, enhanced functions, resets, stuff like that. So pretty good value for the price. Once I get a newer Subaru in the shop, 2016 or newer, I'll see if this will work on the VVT reset. This 2015 car did not have the option in the scan tool. It's possible that I could have lied to it and said it was an Outback or an Impreza, and maybe that option would have populated, but more than likely that function wasn't available on the back end of the factory scan tool, or the ECM on the vehicle doesn't even recognize that function. If you have any questions or comments, put those down below. If you want more information or specific question about the Ediag Elite, put that down below. I'll try to test it out and get back to you. If it's something interesting, I'll film a video and post that video up so everyone can learn from it. Thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, subscribe, click that bell notification icon, and we'll see you again next time.